Welcome to History 112, Lecture 30, Concerns Abroad. Japan by the 1920s had a relatively liberal government. This had grown out of the chaos and reforms of the Meiji Restoration. But by this point, Japan is going to see external threats in the form of the Soviet Union and in China. Now, China in particular is exerting increased influence over Manchuria, which had been under Japanese domination since 1905. Now, internally, the Japanese civilian government is also going to be threatened by two secret societies, which are both going to stage coups. And both these coups are going to come out of what they see as the weakening of Japan by civilian rule. While the two coups in Japan do not succeed in changing the government, they do succeed in changing public opinion and moving it away from the civilian government towards the military. And in particular, the chaos brought on by one of these coup attempts allows the Japanese army to go ahead and take advantage of the situation, because they had already wanted to invade Manchuria to end Chinese influence there, and a plan had been drawn up for an invasion and approved. The civilian government was reluctant to approve this plan unless China first attacked. So during the Imperial Colors Incident, which is one of these coups, Japanese officers are going to stage a border incident, and they're going to go ahead and then respond with invasion while the government back in Japan is busy dealing with the coup. Now, by the time the dust settles, the civilian government is going to have no choice but to back the invasion. Now, Japan is going to go ahead and establish a puppet state called Manchukuo and put the last Chinese Emperor Puyi on the throne. Now, Japan is going to be condemned by the League of Nations for this incident, and this is going to prompt them to go ahead and withdraw in February of 1933. Now, importantly, the United States' backing of open door policy in China and the treaties that had guaranteed China's territorial integrity really are seen to be hollow, and out of this comes the U.S. doctrine called the Stinson Doctrine, which is we are going to not recognize international territorial changes that are executed by force. Now, that in and of itself is not going to in any way stop Japanese aggression, and they're going to go ahead and occupy and invade China proper in 1937. Meanwhile, in Europe, we're seeing the rise of fascism. Benito Mussolini had come to power in 1922, advocating strong government intervention in the economy and a reorganization of society, all for the purpose of strengthening the state. Now, Adolf Hitler is going to come to power a decade later with fairly similar ideas, and Hitler is going to withdraw from the League of Nations at the end of 1933 and work to systematically disassemble the Treaty of Versailles, or as he referred to it, the Versailles Diktat. Now, Italy is going to go ahead and invade Abyssinia shortly thereafter, and the League response to not only Hitler withdrawing from the League of Nations, but also Italian aggression is going to be very weak, and most historians are going to view this as the real death of the League of Nations. Now, Italy is going to be condemned, and they're going to go ahead and withdraw, and that's going to end the crisis in European terms. Now, the Abyssinia crisis is also going to importantly reorient European politics, with Germany and Italy now being friendly and the anti-German bloc in Europe being weakened by the exit of Italy. Now, around the same time, you're going to see a treaty being signed between France and the Soviet Union, and Germany's going to use this as an excuse to do what it calls take defensive action in March 1936, and they're going to reoccupy the Rhineland. Now, this is a big gamble for Germany, so only a small number of troops were involved. What helps Hitler get away with this is Britain had already been in talks with Germany that would have remilitarized the Rhineland anyway. There is the pro-German attitude in Italy, and importantly, France is in the hands of a caretaker government pending new elections. And by custom, the new government is going to take no real radical departures from the status quo. They're simply there to keep the seats warm until the election happens. And by the time that election happens, the German occupation of the Rhineland is now a fact, and the new government chooses to let it go. Meanwhile, Britain also chooses to let it go because the popular opinion within the country doesn't necessarily oppose the German action. British newspapers compare Hitler taking control of the Rhineland to a British person taking control of their backyard shed. Fascism in Europe further spreads with the Spanish Civil War. General Franco, who was a fascist, had attempted to depose a leftist government there, and that resulted in a full-scale civil war. And a lot of nations are going to send volunteers to fight on one side or the other. And there's some very important effects of this civil war. First, it's going to strengthen German-Italian relations. It's going to provide a training ground for new military technologies and tactics, and many are going to see a new general European conflict as inevitable following the Civil War. But newspapers at the time show an increasing assumption that Britain, France, Germany, Italy, and the Soviet Union will be somehow involved in the war, but who's going to be on what side is hotly debated. There's a lot of people in Europe in 1936 and 1937 arguing that an alliance with Germany to oppose the Soviet Union would actually be a desirable outcome. So what's the big idea here? Well, Japan's going to go to war with China while there's a rise of fascism in Europe. And while specific military actions taken by these people were condemned, there's no real response. And ultimately, people conclude that war is on the horizon, and that conclusion is going to have a strong influence on American foreign policy. See you in the next lecture.